There is a specific kind of institutional arrogance that produces its own punishment. It does not announce itself. It accumulates quietly, exercise by exercise, ally by ally, procurement decision by procurement decision, until one day the most powerful military on earth looks around and realizes it has been winning arguments while losing partners. And partners, once lost, do not return because you won the argument. The United States ambassador to Canada sat down with CBC News and told the Canadian government, publicly, on camera, with full diplomatic authority, that if Canada purchased the Swedish-built Saab Gripen instead of the American F-35, NORAD would have to be altered, that American jets would fly more frequently into Canadian airspace, that the 67-year Continental Defense Alliance would be restructured in response to an allied nation's procurement choice. He called the Gripen an inferior product, not worthy of protecting North American airspace. 2 months later, Denmark's Defense Committee chairman told Canadian media, "Choose another fighter jet." His reasoning was not about Swedish engineering. It was about what Denmark learned the hard way after choosing American. The F-35s, he said, are in for repairs about half the time, and the Americans have all the power to destroy Denmark's entire air force simply by withholding spare parts. That is an elected NATO allies defense official publicly warning another democracy against the dependency that Denmark created, because Denmark is now living inside that dependency and does not like what it feels like. That is the story underneath the fighter jet procurement debate, not which aircraft has better radar. The story of what happens to American alliance architecture when Washington turns defense partnership into commercial leverage and allies start doing the math on what that leverage costs them. Welcome back. Today we go through the full picture, the Gripen's actual combat exercise record, the cost arithmetic that makes the F-35 program the most expensive weapons acquisition in American military history, the internal contradictions in Washington's position, the global allied recalculation underway, and the strategic question that every American taxpayer deserves an honest answer to. Let's go. Start with the exercise record, because the gap between what the ambassador said and what the documented results show is where the story begins. Red Flag, Alaska, 2006. One of the most prestigious and realistic multinational air combat exercises in the world, hosted by the United States Air Force. The Swedish Air Force brought their Gripens and was assigned to the Red Team, the adversary force, with deliberately reduced AWACS support and reduced ground support, handicapped against a Blue Team with the full weight of American combat infrastructure. On day one, the Gripens connected their own link systems, generated their own battlefield awareness without the support they had been denied, avoided all ground defenses, and scored 10 simulated kills, including a Eurofighter Typhoon, one of Europe's most capable jets, 0 losses. One Gripen pilot knocked down 5 F-16 Block 50-plus fighters in close air combat. Throughout the entire exercise, the Gripens never lost a single aerial engagement, never failed a single mission objective, and, this detail gets overlooked, was the only fighter in the entire exercise that flew every single planned sortie while other aircraft, including American ones, sat grounded waiting for weather to clear. That is not a fluke. The exercise record extends well beyond Alaska. During joint exercises with the Royal Norwegian Air Force, 3 Gripens went against 5 Norwegian F-16s, 5-0, first round, 5-0, second round, 5-1, third round. 3 Gripens eliminated 5 F-16s across 3 consecutive engagements with a total of 1 loss. During Exercise Loyal Arrow in Sweden, a single Gripen acting as an aggressor intercepted 3 United States Air Force F-15C Eagles, one of America's premier air superiority fighters. 2 F-15s were shot down. 1 escaped, but only by using its superior thrust-to-weight ratio to disengage and run. 1 fourth-generation Swedish fighter took on 3 American air superiority jets in its home environment and killed 2 of them. During Falcon Strike 2015 in Thailand, Gripens flew against Chinese Su-27 flankers. Thai pilots achieved 41 simulated shootdowns against the Chinese fighters while losing 9. 88% of those kills came from beyond visual range at 19 miles or more, demonstrating that Gripen sensor and missile integration performs at the top tier of the Western arsenal. This is the aircraft the Trump administration's ambassador called not worthy of protecting North American airspace. The exercise record sitting underneath that statement is available in the public domain. It is not classified. It is not contested by the militaries that participated in these exercises. It is simply not discussed in American defense media with the prominence it deserves because it raises uncomfortable questions about a $1.8 trillion program that the defense establishment has a significant institutional interest in not having raised. Now the cost architecture, because the arithmetic is where the F-35's problems become structurally consequential rather than just embarrassing. The F-35 program carries a total estimated lifetime cost of approximately $1.8 trillion. That figure has been confirmed by the Government Accountability Office and discussed in multiple congressional oversight hearings. It is the most expensive weapons acquisition program in the history of the United States military. Cost per flight hour estimates for the F-35 range from approximately $30,000 to over $40,000, depending on methodology and what maintenance costs are included. Pentagon officials have set a target of reducing that figure to $25,000 by the end of the decade. That target has not been met. The Gripen's cost per flight hour is estimated between $4,700 and $8,000 to $10,000, depending on source and cost inclusion methodology. Taking the most conservative comparison, maximally generous to the F-35 and maximally skeptical of the Gripen, you are still looking at a cost differential of 3 to 4 times per hour of flight. Over a 30-year service life with hundreds of thousands of fleet flight hours, that differential represents tens of billions of dollars. Tens of billions that could fund pilot training hours, maintenance cycles, readiness improvement, and the sustained operational tempo that produces combat-capable pilots who have actually flown enough hours to be dangerous in the aircraft they operate. Readiness is the practical transmission mechanism from cost differential to military capability. The percentage of the F-35 fleet that is ready to fly on any given day has been a persistent concern in Pentagon planning documents for years. When aircraft are expensive to maintain and maintenance windows are long, readiness rates fall. When readiness rates fall, pilots fly fewer hours. When pilots fly fewer hours, proficiency degrades. The most advanced aircraft in the world is less effective in the hands of pilots who cannot afford enough hours in it to maintain peak capability. Denmark's defense chairman said the F-35s are in for repairs about half the time. That is not a political criticism. That is an operational assessment from a country that is living with the reality of F-35 fleet management. The Gripen was designed around a fundamentally different operational philosophy by Sweden, a nation that understood from the outset that it could never outspend Russia in a potential conflict and therefore had to build an aircraft that outsmarted the spending constraint. The aircraft operates from 500-meter strips of public highway. It can be turned around, rearmed, and refueled in under 20 minutes by a small team of conscript mechanics, not specialized technicians in climate-controlled hangars. The Swedish military has practiced dispersed highway operations under their Base 90 doctrine for decades, distributing aircraft across the country to deny adversaries the ability to destroy the fleet on the ground in a first strike. That philosophy, distributed, resilient, cheap enough to maintain at high readiness, is directly relevant to Canada's operational environment, where Arctic conditions, dispersed northern bases, and small maintenance teams are not theoretical planning assumptions. They are the daily reality of defending one of the largest geographic territories on Earth. Now the internal contradictions, because they are too prominent to avoid examining. The Trump administration's ambassador called the Gripen inferior. In May 2025, at a roundtable in Doha, Trump publicly criticized the F-35's single-engine design, said he doesn't like single engines, and suggested a twin-engine replacement he called the F-55 was in development, a program that aviation experts noted does not exist. Former Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall described his reaction to those comments as mystified. Earlier in his political career, Trump called the F-35's cost out of control and asked Boeing to price out an FA-18 Super Hornet alternative. Elon Musk, one of Trump's closest advisors, has publicly called the F-35 inferior to drone swarms. Acclaimed defense analyst Richard Abulafia described as a complete fantasy, but that represents a direct public dismissal of the program podium by someone at the center of American defense technology policy discussions. The president has criticized the F-35 as too expensive, his technology advisor has called it obsolete, and his ambassador is threatening America's closest geographic ally for considering the aircraft that the president himself has questioned. The contradiction is not subtle, and it is not resolvable through careful framing. It reveals that the position being taken toward Canada is not derived from a coherent military assessment of what aircraft best serves North American defense. It is derived from a commercial interest in Lockheed Martin's production contract. Dressed in the language of alliance reliability, allies are reading that contradiction. They are not naive about what it means. The global allied recalculation is visible in procurement decisions across multiple countries simultaneously. Spain and Portugal canceled their F-35 orders after the United States levied tariffs against them. The connection between trade policy and defense procurement that Washington has not formally acknowledged is being made explicitly by the countries canceling orders. Switzerland downgraded its original F-35 commitment after initial cost estimates proved too low. Denmark, which operates the F-35 as its only fighter with no alternative, has parliamentary members publicly expressing second thoughts and its Defense Committee chairman warning Canada directly. Meanwhile, the Gripen's order book is expanding. Colombia signed a multi-billion-dollar deal for 17 Gripen EF aircraft in late 2025. Brazil has 36 on order and is negotiating for more with local assembly by Embraer. Peru is planning to purchase 24. Saab's offer to Canada packages 72 Gripen E and F fighters with 6 GlobalEye airborne early warning and control aircraft in a deal structured to create 12,600 jobs in Canadian manufacturing facilities in Ontario and Quebec, the provinces whose industrial employment figures carry the most political weight in Canadian federal politics. And then the leverage dimension that American taxpayers deserve to know about. The Gripen E is powered by a General Electric F414 engine, American-made. Washington could potentially use export controls to block the sale by denying GE permission to supply the power plant to Saab for aircraft destined for Canada. Reports indicate that Trump administration officials have privately signaled that the United States would not permit highly classified data sharing over a network that included the Gripen, effectively threatening to exclude Canada from NORAD's intelligence architecture if it buys the Swedish aircraft. Export controls to prevent an ally from purchasing a competitor's product. Intelligence exclusion conditioned on commercial compliance. The ambassador's statement that NORAD would be altered is not an isolated comment. It is part of a systematic pattern of using the defense relationship as commercial leverage, and the countries on the receiving end are making procurement decisions that reflect their assessment of that pattern. Here is the honest military analysis, because the Gripen's defenders can oversimplify as much as its dismissers. The F-35 has genuine fifth-generation capabilities that the Gripen cannot match in specific operational domains. Stealth is real. The F-35's low observable profile against radar-guided threats provides survivability advantages in high-threat environments against adversaries with sophisticated integrated air defense systems that the Gripen's fourth-generation design cannot replicate. Sensor fusion, the F-35's ability to integrate data from multiple sensors into a single coherent picture for the pilot, is a genuine operational advantage in complex multi-threat environments. The F-35 was designed to operate inside defended airspace, where a less stealthy aircraft would be detected and engaged before it could complete its mission. Those capabilities matter in specific scenarios. The question defense planners are asking is whether those scenarios are the ones Canada will most frequently face. Canada's primary air defense mission is sovereignty patrol, NORAD surveillance, Arctic intercepts, and rapid response to ambiguous threats in remote geography. The aircraft that performs that mission most effectively over a 30-year service life may not be the aircraft optimized for penetrating sophisticated Russian or Chinese integrated air defenses. It may be the aircraft that can deploy to a northern base, operate from improvised surfaces, be maintained by small teams with limited infrastructure, and be in the air every day rather than in maintenance half the time. Margaret Kosel, former Defense Department official and professor at Georgia Tech, described the growing Allied unease about F-35 dependency as a potential canary in the coal mine, signaling a lack of confidence in the United States as a reliable defense partner. That language, from a former Defense Department official, is not hyperbole. It is a professional assessment of a directional trend in Allied confidence. 72% of Canadians now support incorporating the Gripen into their Air Force, according to Ecos Politics polling. That number did not come from a vacuum. It came from watching an ambassador threaten to alter the defense arrangement that has protected the continent since the Cold War. It came from reading Denmark's warning about spare parts leverage. It came from processing the proposition that buying American hardware means accepting American veto power over your Air Force's operational capacity indefinitely. Here is the question that belongs at the center of this discussion, and it is not about airframes. For 70 years, American defense leadership was not built primarily on the technical superiority of any individual weapon system. It was built on the network of alliances that multiplied American military capability across the globe, on the credibility of American security commitments, on the trust of Allied governments who integrated their defense planning with American strategy because they believed the partnership was reliable. That network is the force multiplier. Without it, American military technology operates in isolation. With it, American capability is extended across every geography where Allied forces are present and Allied infrastructure is available. The network depends on trust. Trust is not maintained by conditioning intelligence sharing on commercial compliance. It is not preserved by threatening to alter defense arrangements when allies exercise their sovereign procurement rights. It is not rebuilt after an elected NATO ally's defense chairman publicly warns another democracy not to create the dependency Denmark created, because Denmark is living with what that dependency actually means. When Washington calls the Gripen an inferior product, it is making a statement about an aircraft. When Denmark's defense chairman tells Canada to choose another fighter jet, he is making a statement about a relationship. Those two statements are not in the same category. One is a procurement assessment. The other is an Allied government's judgment about whether the American security relationship is structured around partnership or leverage. The exercise record at Red Flag, Alaska did not show an inferior product. It showed a disciplined, capable, operationally resilient aircraft defeating American-designed fighters in an American-hosted exercise while handicapped against a fully supported adversary. The pilots who flew it were not flying an inferior product. They were flying a different philosophy. Cheaper, more maintainable, more deployable, less dependent on infrastructure and specialized support. A philosophy designed by a small nation that understood it could not win by spending more, and therefore chose to win by spending smarter. The United States built the most capable military in human history by doing both, spending more and spending smarter. The F-35 is the product of spending more. The question Canada is asking, the question Denmark is now asking from inside the dependency it created, is whether the smartness kept pace with the spending, and whether an alliance partner whose procurement choice is treated as a commercial loyalty test is being treated as an equal or as a customer. Flying alone with the most expensive aircraft in history is a worse security outcome than flying alongside allies in aircraft that cost a fraction as much and have proven in exercise after exercise that they can hold their own. The ambassador's statement is on camera. Denmark's warning is on the record. The exercise results are in the public domain. The inferior product flew circles around American jets in an American-hosted exercise. The rest of the story is about what Washington chose to do with that information, and what allies are now choosing to do about what Washington chose.